So you have been in the industry since before it's fully digitized.
Yeah.
So first I have to ask, what is your opinion of the change of the media landscape?
It's interesting. I've been with CNN since 2001. This is 17 years.
17
News
years.
Network. I know, such a long time. When I first joined CNN in 2001, I was an experiment. I was hired as a multi-platform journalist.
Wow.
So
okay.
50% of my time was on CNN.com. We had just launched CNN.com Asia, and 50% on TV. And then over time, I was groomed to be 100% on TV. But as you know, the digital revolution, the social media revolution has taken place since then. So now, even though I'm on air every night, my work goes online, my work goes on social. You're able to see my work on a variety of devices because CNN is no longer a TV news network.
Right.
We are a multi-platform digital news network.
So I can say you're actually a pioneer of the digital media.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm a pioneer. I was at the right place at the right time.
Right.
You know, so I grew up in Silicon Valley. I went to Stanford University. I was using email in 1992. I was designing my own web page in 1994. I was working in internet publishing in 1996. So I was at the right place at the right time just to see the unfolding of the digital revolution. But one thing I always remind myself is, even though I'm getting older, we always have to embrace the new. So there will always be some sort of new technology, new platform. We cannot rest on our laurels and stick with old habits, but to explore that, which is why I've really embraced social media, for example, over the years.
So how CNN deal with the change? And how do you, as a person, as yourself, a person in journalism, deal with all this changing landscape?
CNN embraces the change, and that is what I love about CNN. CNN may be this huge multinational news network, but we operate almost like a startup. We're always hungry to experiment. And it also comes down to, yes, the story, and using new technology to cover the story, but also servicing our viewer. We need to be where our viewers are. And if our viewers are on mobile devices, or on tablet devices, or on social media, we have to make sure that our content reaches them.
So we can say technology is good for the industry.
Yes.
So what do you think, whether the technology is good for journalism?
They're always good and the bad and the ugly, right?
Yes.
Right now we're reporting on the Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal, right? So there's always this danger of technology biting back. Sometimes it's something that we can predict, sometimes it's something that we can't predict. I think for years I've always been a little bit cautious about Facebook because it's now a cliche. We've said it for so many times and so many years. On Facebook it's free because the product is you.
Right.
So when you use Facebook, what is your product? You're offering your data. So what is Facebook doing with your data? And I've always been a little bit careful about using social media. Of course I use it as an extension of my work as a journalist, but I really have been very careful about my personal information and putting it there. And as we've seen with the scandal unfolding, there was a reason why we should be careful.
Right.
Sometimes a platform could be so big that it could lose track on where that data goes to. And I think it's a question that us as journalists need to explore, but also as digital consumers, we need to be wary of what kind of data are people collecting or platforms collecting, and what are they doing with it, and do they need to be more transparent? And I think as journalists, we also need to encourage our audiences to ask these questions so they could be more empowered as digital consumers.
And sometimes we are too hurry.
I'm sorry?
Sometimes we are too hurry.
Sometimes we're too fast?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I think CNN, we're known for being a breaking news network, but we're always very careful that we want to get it right first, not fast. So before we take something to air, it has to go through very rigorous checks and balances to make sure that it's accurate, that it's balanced, and that it's credible. The ABCs.
Right. Talking about news, the term fake news, it's become something that people hear a lot since 2016 election in US. Does it change the way you collect and process information and produce news?
Absolutely no. I think what's new about fake news is how it's a hashtag, and how it's been used as a rhetorical weapon by some people to shut down a conversation. But fake news has been around for centuries. Fake news has been around ever since the printing press was invented. Conspiracy theories, urban legends, hoaxes, This has been around even before broadcast TV and these cameras were invented. Of course, what's different is social media.
The media.
Because of social media, fake news can be spread like wildfire. But CNN has always stayed true to our DNA and our core, which is we have to be credible, right? And even as an anchor, I know I have to be really careful because my personal credibility and the credibility of this vast news network is at risk. So we have to make sure we get it right.
You have a show in CNN on China.
I did, yes, I did. And sometimes we bring it back, yes.
So I guess it's right to ask you, what is your opinion on this? Because some analysts say that if US and China goes the way they are going now, soon enough, China will surpass US in military, in trading partner, foreign relation, and there will be a new world order.
It is very interesting to see what happened out of the recent National People's Congress. Chinese President Xi Jinping is now a president for life. There are no more term limits,
right,
which is very different compared to the American order, right, where there's a presidential election every 4 years. Now, I thought this was interesting because it goes against convention that there should be political succession. But talking to political analysts inside China, they say that the reason why this is in place is, number one, the Chinese president is extremely popular in the party. Number two, he is popular among many people in China. And number three, it allows him to oversee for an extended and long period of time the modernization of the Chinese media, the rollout of One Belt, One Road in places like Thailand, also the anti-corruption drive. This is a brand new model of governance, right? Putting a leader in place for life to oversee long, long, long projects. Now, how is it going to turn out? Is it going to be successful? Is this going to be good for China and the world? Or is this going to go back to the reason why term limits were introduced in China in the early 1980s? One-man autocratic rule. That remains to be seen. This is the grand experiment that is unfolding right now, and we're watching this very closely.
So let's move topic to Korea Peninsula. Do you think US has a lot of role to play in what's going on right now? And do you think the meeting will really happen by the end of May between Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un?
It's interesting. I think the major role that's being played right now is played by the South Korean government, right? In the last few weeks, it's been fascinating to see the optics of these South Korean senior officials first travel to Pyongyang with that meeting with Kim Jong-un, then travel to Washington, D.C.,
so fast.
Getting that commitment so fast, getting that commitment from Donald Trump to agree to this meeting with Kim Jong-un, then traveling to Tokyo, traveling to Beijing, making sure all the parties are involved and on the same page. So this is a flurry of diplomacy on part of the South Koreans, right? Is this meeting going to take place? Well, we're still waiting to hear official confirmation from Kim Jong-un and North Korean state media to Donald Trump agreeing to this meeting. I think the inter-Korean meeting between South and North Korea will likely take place. And when that happens, CNN and Newsstream will go back to Seoul to cover that live, as we've done before. We covered the inter-Korean talks a couple weeks ago that opened and paved the way to North Korea going to the Pyeongchang Games. This will be a big story when the inter-Korean talks happen yet again, especially if it's Moon Jae-in and Kim Jong-un. As for Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump, that remains to be seen. But of course, if and when that happens, that will be a massive story. And we will definitely be there to cover it.
It will be first in history that the president that's still incumbent president meet up with the leader of North Korea.
That's true.
So it's something historic if it's really happened.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about Russia. What do you think about relationship between US and Russia right now? I would say between US leader and Russian leader. Is it a little too cozy?
It's very perplexing, especially with the news happening in the last couple of days. Donald Trump being briefed, in all caps, not to congratulate Vladimir Putin on his overwhelming victory in the presidential elections last weekend, and then Donald Trump going ahead and congratulating Putin. Now the focus is turned to Donald Trump is upset about leaks inside the White House. Who leaked that there was this memo in all caps, and this is such an embarrassment. It is perplexing the signals that are coming out of the Trump administration, and namely Donald Trump. But then again, I am not a Donald Trump whisperer. I cannot interpret what happens. He seems to be a very impulsive man. He also seems to be a man who doesn't like to be told what to do. So perhaps he said that because he didn't want to be told what to do from that memo. He didn't want to be briefed. But do you know what? Everyone is watching Trump around the world, and we can only guess what motivates this man.
Is the way his government work made the media work more difficult?
Yes, because of the pace of the news cycle. Right? So, I mean, Donald Trump every day, whether it's through what he says, through press conferences, the results of his actions, or what he tweets, we are constantly on our toes. When Newsstream goes to air, 7 p.m. Bangkok time, that's usually around the same time, 7 a.m. in the morning, Eastern time in the US, that's when Donald Trump is up, and guess what?
Right.
He's grabbing his smartphone and he's tweeting. So right before I go to air, and when I'm even live on air, I hold my iPad and I'm looking at real Donald Trump to see if he's going to say anything, right? Because he breaks news on Twitter. Remember, he fired his chief diplomat, Rex Tillerson, was ousted on Twitter.
That's unheard of.
Yeah, this is the new nature. For the last year or so, this is how the president operates. So he constantly keeps us on our toes, and we have to monitor his Twitter feed, his actions, and what he says in public.
Last question might be a little more personal. How do you keep your morale up if you feel that maybe the industry or your career doesn't go the way it's supposed to go, or maybe it's getting difficult and complicated?
Yeah, I think it's, right now at CNN, morale is extremely high because we feel that we are more relevant than ever before. Audiences around the world are turning to CNN to find out what's happening out of the Trump White House, what's happening on the Korean Peninsula, what is going on with the standoff between Russia and the United Kingdom, right? All these extremely important stories. And we feel this desire to serve our audience. Yes, it's high stakes. Yes, there's a lot of pressure because we can't get it wrong, but we feel we are here to serve, and that is what drives us.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
It has been a great talk.
Yeah, it was a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just afraid it will be too.
That was great. Thank you so much.
That was great, really?
Yeah.